history of Tulsa and the Brady area and in the state as a whole. So I want to welcome everybody to a Red Letter Day, a day I think we will all remember for all of our lives. Bob Blackburn, the Oklahoma Historical Society, and many, many people in this room and far beyond have been working on a project for over 5 years, and that's to create the OKPOP, the Oklahoma History Center's signature project in Tulsa to celebrate Oklahoma's rich contribution to musical and artistic heritage throughout our country and beyond. Right now, the block just to the south of us has been donated by Bank of Oklahoma, and it will be the site for the future Oklahoma Pop. And you got to... And you might have to squint or close your eyes for a moment to imagine the beauty of it and the importance of it for when it comes on the scene. But just a couple years ago, you would have had to shut your eyes to imagine the KOTV headquarters 3 blocks to our north. You would have had to close your eyes to imagine the great Guthrie Green just 2 blocks to our north. You would have had to close your eyes to imagine the Woody Guthrie Center, the Philbrook, the Gilcrease, and the Contemporary 108 that's under construction and about to open in just a few months. You would have had to close your eyes to imagine the Arts and Humanities Council, AHA's headquarters that you're in right now, because none of them were here. And now they are, and they're making an incredibly important contribution to our community and our state. So thank you for doing that, and keep dreaming and keep working, and we're going to get the OKPOP real soon. We've got a short but excellent program for you today. Our speakers will be Dr. Bob Blackburn, the head of the Oklahoma Historical Society, from the State Senate, which have just been our rock-solid supporters in getting this project done. The leader of the State Senate, Senator Brian Bingman, his colleague, the Democrat leader, Sean Burridge. Only one bond issue passed any house of the legislature last year. That was this project, and it was the State Senate, and I know they're committed to do it again and to get their brothers and sisters in the House to do the same, and we'll have the show on the road. We also have our mayor, Dewey Bartlett, who I think has may have a long-standing personal connection with this important day as well. Our regional chamber chair, the CEO of the chamber, Mike Neal. Also, we have several other guests in the house. I see our city councilor and board member of Tulsa Community Foundation, Phil Lakin, in the back. And I always have to recognize Phil Lakin, Fred Dorward, and Phil Froelich, my board members of the George Kaiser Foundation, when they're here. And Phil, we appreciate your service in many ways. Blake Ewing, City Councilor Blake Ewing, I think is here as well, or is here in spirit. Fred Dorward's over there. Bob Fleischman, the Brady District Association leader. Officials from the Bank of Oklahoma, I think Leslie Paris is here. Gary Aiken from the Owasso Chamber is here. Appreciate that. Also a couple business guys and philanthropists who you may have seen around in the community. Phil Kaiser, who's a restaurateur in the Brady and in Brookside. And George Kaiser there in the back, keeping a very low profile, who does a lot to make all this happen. First, and maybe foremost, I want to introduce Dr. Bob Blackburn, who serves as the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Historical Society and is the renowned historian of the state, an OSU grad, and doctorate degree holder, publisher of 18 books, and the idealist who came up with the vision of the OKPOP, but also the manager and the pragmatist who actually makes things happen and who has so much credibility and trust and integrity in the legislature and in our policy community and in the state at large that he can bring things to pass that are hard to do and do it with excellence. Dr. Blackburn.
Thank you, Ken. Well, Ken talked about leadership in Tulsa. And I've been working in this business 34 years, and the leadership that I see in Tulsa now makes me think that our future is very bright in Tulsa, not just for OKPOP, but for everything. Economic development, health and welfare, happiness and prosperity for our people here. And I have 3 board members here. Speaking of leadership, those who hired and fired the director of the Oklahoma Historical Society, Karen Keith on the front row, John Mabry back here, and Guy Logston right over here. We want to thank them as well. Well, we're here today to talk about the Museum of Popular Culture, OKPOP for short. It'll be right here, as Ken said. The museum itself is really a symbol of what we call crossroads of creativity. Crossroads of creativity is a term that we're using to describe Oklahomans who have come here from all corners of the world, combined into something new and unique, and then have expressed themselves through their art. That crossroads goes through all of our themes, starting with Wild West shows and powwows and tent shows. It goes to movies and television and radio and popular artists. It goes into every form of creative expression that provides a window to the creative nature of Oklahoma and its people and our experience. The location for this museum is at the crossroads of creativity. It is in Tulsa, which is appropriate with all of the creative talent that has come out of this community from the very beginning, starting with our American Indian population, our immigrant population, and keep adding layer after layer to this mixture of creative people. Again, blending all of this into something new and then expressing right here in Tulsa. The actual location of the building that BOK has so generously pledged to this project, contingent upon approval of a state bond issue, is in the Brady Arts District. Again, a crossroads of creativity in this creative community. And then it's a crossroads of creativity in terms of the entire state. This is not just a Tulsa museum. This is not just an Oklahoma Historical Society facility. This is a statewide museum. This will represent creativity across the state, all the way from McCurtain County to Cimarron County, with people like Ben Johnson, a cowboy who grew up trained to be the perfect cowboy by his father, who was the foreman of the Chapman Bernard Ranch, who goes off with a herd of horses in 1939 for a Howard Hughes movie called The Outlaw, and learns that he can make the same $35 in Hollywood that he was making on the ranch, but it's per day rather than per month. It's people like Roger Miller from Eric, Oklahoma, called one of the greatest songwriters of all time, that is honored around the world. And when musicians think about Roger, you can see the glint in their eye. There was a genius, again, of the Oklahoma story. Wes Studi, a Cherokee Indian who did not speak English until he went to the first grade, grew up in No Fire Hollow, not far from Tahlequah, Vietnam vet, decorated, comes back to Tulsa, gets in with the theater group in this great community, then goes off to see one of his friends, a Creek Indian from Okmulgee, Will Sampson, and makes it in the movies there, expressing this Oklahoma story. And then one last person, a young man from Blaine County, Oklahoma, who grew up near Watauga, born in 1902. Parents have made the land run of 1892. Clarence Nash goes off to Hollywood, like all of the other Oklahomans of that generation. Does an audition with a young producer named Walt Disney, and with a voice that he developed from nursing a little billy goat on the ranch, becomes the voice of Donald Duck in 1933, and would be the voice until 1985. Yes, Donald Duck was born in Oklahoma. Well, of all of the artists, we have literally interviewed more than 200 artists across the country who come from Oklahoma, who express all of this. And the person that we're honoring today is one of those creative talents who expresses so much about who we are in Oklahoma, who has been recognized around the world. Leon Russell. talk a little bit about Leon before we hand the mic to him. But like this museum that represents crossroads of creativity, Leon, through his life and career, has represented crossroads of creativity in so many ways. From the places that he has called home, born in Lawton, raised in Tulsa, graduate of Will Rogers High School, lived in Los Angeles, part of the Wrecking Crew, would move to Nashville later in his career, performed around the world. Truly a man who was born at the crossroads of American creativity, crossroads of creativity in this state, and would take that Oklahoma experience around the world. In his career is a crossroads. We think of Leon as a musician. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the wonderful musician and studio artist is the writer who can write poetry put to the songs that he can write. An outstanding arranger recognized by several generations of musicians, including Elton John most recently. He was an innovator in the recording studio, kept pushing the limits of recordings and going to, I think, a 40 track at one time. He has been in movies. He has been a performer around the world. His music styles represent crossroads of creativity. Rhythm and blues, gospel, soul, country that he picked up here in Oklahoma. All of this under the umbrella of rock and roll. His collaborators through the years have been at crossroads of creativity, from Doris Day and Frank Sinatra, all the way to the Beach Boys and Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan. Well, today we are here to announce that we are acquiring a collection dedicated to this crossroads of creativity, not just Leon, but the Oklahoma experience, the Tulsa experience. It is a collection that is contingent upon us passing a bond issue in this state, saying, yes, we want to tell the Leon Russell story. We want to use this as a window to our own history, to the heart of that creativity. This particular collection that we're announcing today was gathered by Steve Todoroff, and I'll introduce Steve here in a minute, and his wife, who are with us today. But Steve grew up in Bixby, Oklahoma. He was a fan, as I was a fan, as many of you were fans of Leon Russell. He first heard about Leon in 1965 in his session work. As Steve grew up, he started collecting this story. Not only did he start collecting memorabilia and artifacts, he acquired a collection of photographs taken by Don Nix, who was one of the first artists signed by Leon at Shelter Records, a musician who was one of the originals with Stax Records, who had his camera with Leon and his group of friends and collaborators in those pivotal years of the 60s and the 70s, and recording this experience in thousands of photographs. Steve would later be so fascinated by Leon's career, wanting to go beyond the records that have Leon's name or label. Went into the session records in Los Angeles, where Leon had served as a studio musician, known as one of the best, from 1959 to 1969. And Steve and his research assistants went into the Union records to find every session where Leon was playing an instrument, leading the band, arranging a piece. And more than 300 of those sessions popped out of these records. Steve then went around the world and collected the record that was made during that studio session. All of this comes in this collection, more than 4,000 items. If we can build this museum and convince the leadership of the state that this is a good investment in the Brady Arts District, in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, and in the spirit of creativity in America to compete with the best museums across the country, this collection will be shared with people around the world. Before we let Leon have the microphone, I wanted to introduce some of our friends. Of course, we have Steve Todoroff and his wife, Kathy. Steve is here, and Kathy, would you please stand up and be recognized? And we have Leon's family here today. And let me introduce the whole family, then please stand. Wife Jan Bridges, daughters Sugaree, Coco, Honey, daughter Tina Rose, a granddaughter, China Rose. We also have with us Leon's drummer from Tulsa, Brandon Holder, and Leon's guitar player, again from Tulsa, Bo Sharon. Will all of you please stand and be recognized? So it is my pleasure to give you Leon Russell.
Well, thank you. Now, what am I supposed to do?
The OKPOP Museum.
I want to tell you about Dewey Bartlett. Dewey Bartlett belonged to a partnership that built my lake house up on Grand Lake. We worked on it for 2 or 3 years, so we didn't kill each other, and we remained friends. And those of you who have ever built anything know that that's quite an accomplishment. And that's all I got to say. You can ask questions if you want. I don't have a script.
Could you talk about this collection coming here at your home?
Say that again.
The museum and the collection.
Oh, the museum. Well, I mean, I'm excited that they're building a museum that includes me and others like me. I usually mainly get arrested in this area. And now I got a museum. Who knew? But it's a great thing. You know, I think it inspires people when people can come in a building and see things that they've seen and heard and perhaps inspired them in some way. I think it's a great thing.
How has Oklahoma influenced your work?
Now I can't hear.
How has Oklahoma influenced your work?
Oh, Oklahoma. Well, first of all, it was a dry state. And at 14, I had my own bootlegger, came by every day. And I used to be able to play in the nightclubs because, you know, a dry state doesn't mean that there's no liquor. It means there's no liquor laws. So I used to play in the nightclubs, and I'd get $10 and all I could drink, and I drank all of it. But fortunately, my alcohol problem was over by the time I was 18 and went to California, and I worked in those nightclubs until they changed the doormen, and then I'd lose my job and have to go borrow IDs again. But Oklahoma, I mean, Charlie Parker was here. A lot of people were in this area. It was a great time. Huge show places in the ghetto that I used to go to, Dreamland, and I can't remember the one across the street, but they had full shows 7 nights a week. The Big Ten Ballroom, I saw Jackie Wilson at the Big Ten Ballroom. Huge acts at the Tulsa Municipal Theater. I saw Yasha Heifetz and Little Richard and Clyde McFadder, and the list goes on and on. Huge acts, in my opinion. Got a lot out of it.
Leon, how about some of your friends, other musicians from your generation who go out? How long have you been?
Well, there's a guy called J.J. Cale who went out there with me a time or two. He used to play with an Elvis imitator in town called Gene Croce. I saw him on TV, and Johnny is a guy now that, you know, it's kind of like Miles Davis. He plays with his back to the audience and doesn't have much to say. But at that time, when he was on television playing with Gene Croce, he'd run out and pose like Dwight Yoakam or somebody. It was quite magnificent. A lot of great people that I met here and I played with. When I went out to California after playing with some of these local musicians, those guys out there didn't play that way, and I was a kid, and I said, what's wrong with these guys? They're not playing right.
Any other questions?
What does this mean when you look at your children and grandchildren that this collection going to be preserved and a great place for them to visit?
Well, I'm proud that my family looks rather like the United Nations. And all these pieces of my life will probably look somewhat like that as well. And I'm glad to see it preserved. I myself am not an archivist. I can't keep my receipts for taxes. But Steve Todoroff, on the other hand, needs to be on that television show called Hoarding.
What we might do is we'll make a few more comments about our plans, and then the press would like to come up and interview Leon afterwards. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. A man that I've been working with for several years at the state capitol, a man I respect, a man who's provided leadership and was very supportive of this the first time that Mike Neal and Ken Levitt and I went to see him at the state capitol. And he could see the vision. He appreciated the creativity of Oklahoma's people, grew up along Route 66, not far from here, and saw the vision very early. And it's never easy at the Capitol to get something new moving. Inertia is a powerful force. And he was willing to step out and to try something new, and has been there with us each step of the way. And I'm pleased to introduce Pro Tem of the Oklahoma Senate, Brian Bingman.
Good afternoon. We have a great crowd here today, and I think I even see someone who came from Oklahoma City, Mike Turpin. So it's nice to have someone pay the toll from Oklahoma City to come up here. I was on Flashpoint yesterday. He worked me over, so this is a little payback. Really, this project, we got to give a lot of credit where credit is due, and Bob Blackburn, his leadership is the only reason this thing's made possible. So I'd like to say thank you, Bob, for your vision on this. Certainly while we're here today, I go back to think when I was in high school back in the 70s, and it was really cool when you lived in Sapulpa to drive over to Tulsa, drive up and down Peoria, and then you want to go drive by Leon Russell's house. And I always remember the house. I don't know if it's on 22nd or 26th, but had a big old wall out in front. And we're always driving by there thinking, maybe we could hear him in there practicing with his friends and his buddies. And never knew what was going on inside that house. Never had the opportunity to get in there. But it's nice to know that he's from Tulsa and his roots are here. And how important the Pops Museum is to the state of Oklahoma. I don't think Tulsa has a state museum. We have museums all over the state, but not one in Tulsa. I tell my kids, my grandchildren about the music of my time, and sometimes they don't believe me. So what a great opportunity if we had collections right here in Tulsa that I could take my kids and my grandchildren over and say, this is what was popular when I was growing up. So Leon Russell, I thank you for your commitment and helping us get this project done. We will get it done. We've got some great leadership in this state and people that want to see it done. I would encourage all of you here to call your legislator, your House rep, and tell them how important this is for Tulsa, Oklahoma, and for the state of Oklahoma. And those messages ring home and are very effective. So thank you all for being here. It's a great occasion, and I look forward to seeing the full completion. And maybe at that time we can hear some original Leon songs by the artist himself. But Leon, thank you for being here very much.
Thank you, Senator Bingman. And next up, close to home, from Claremore, the home of Patty Page, will also be featured in the Oklahoma Pop Museum. One of our great friends and supporters, Senator Sean Burridge.
Thank you, Ken, and Bob, that was a great presentation. You're one of the great leaders in the state, but you made a mistake in it. It's not Pro Tem Bingman. Today it's Governor Bingman. That's right. The governor, lieutenant governor are not in the state of Oklahoma, so he's the governor.
Let's get this deal done.
And just remember, I'll have a standing request to be on the OU Regents. I'm Sean Burridge. I am from Claremore. I represent Rogers and Mayes counties, and those who don't know me, that I try to fight hard for Rogers and Mayes County, the state capital, and I consider that to be my job. But I'm not here today as a senator from Rogers and Mayes counties. I'm here as a senator from the state of Oklahoma. This museum is not about Tulsa. It's not about Northeast Oklahoma. It's about something for the state of Oklahoma. Last year, when we started the session, there were about 3 major bond proposals that people were talking about. And I would have bet a lot of money that this one would never have received a vote on the Senate floor, although it was supportive. I would have bet even more money that it would have never passed the state Senate, and it did with 1 vote. I was proud to be part of that. But that's because of the leadership we have right here in Northeast Oklahoma, and more specifically in Tulsa, starting with Bob Blackburn in Oklahoma City, the George Kaiser Family Foundation, the Tulsa Chamber, and local leaders like Commissioner Karen Keith, that was able to happen, and we had that vote and it passed. And I look forward to working this legislative session to do the right thing, to fund this project, not for Tulsa, not for Northeast Oklahoma, but for the state of Oklahoma. And you have my pledge and commitment to do so.
I'd like to introduce, I started this presentation cataloging some of the giant steps we've taken in Grady and downtown over the past few years. Everyone, Mayor Bartlett, played a critical role and was right by our side. Mayor Bartlett, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Well, thank you, Ken. Leon, it's good to see you. I always get worried when someone back in those days gets up with the microphone and I'm around, but you did well.
Tell all.
Don't you think that's right, Jody? I remember so much about becoming a friend of Leon Russell's. When we built the buildings up at Grand Lake, he had a very, very large, state-of-the-art recording studio built, and it was incredible. The people that were there. But I never forget the opportunity I had to sit in the back of the room, and Leon would walk in, had a very large concert grand piano, and he'd sit down by himself, or maybe with 1 or 2 other people, and just start playing something. Thinking of a song, and playing it from scratch. It could be 10 in the morning or 3 in the middle of the night. But the music that would come out of that man's fingers and his mind was just incredible. I remember when he played a concert, one of the earlier ones he did in Tulsa that I recall. It was down at the Performing Arts Center. And you came in and walked in out by yourself at the piano, started playing, and it segued into Take Me Back to Tulsa. And I mean, everybody jumped up on their feet, hooted and hollered, and went crazy. And then it went on from there. And the master of space and time once again showed the great capability you have as a musician, and made us so proud to say that Leon Russell's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. You gave us relevancy. The history that this city has in music is pretty awe-inspiring. People like Ernie Fields and his band. Charlie Christian, one of the first guys that used an electric guitar. Johnny Cale. Carl Rayland, one of the most famous bass players that this music scene has ever seen in the world. Freddie King used to come by. All the people you'd bring to town that would be here to play music. And you gave us relevancy at that time, Leon, when we didn't have any, as far as the music scene went. But you coming here and providing that leadership and that creativity, and people would say, what are you doing in Tulsa? Well, because that's where the music was. And you were here. And you helped wave that flag and gave us relevancy. And today, we're asking one more time for that relevancy to come forth with the Oklahoma Pop Museum. And you're so nice and you're so kind to be here to help us wave that flag, to stake the claim that the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma is very relevant in the music scene of this world, in this community. The Tulsa sound. It began a long time ago, but it got relevancy when Leon came to town and stayed. And it keeps coming back. And now he's here one more time. Back to Tulsa. You know, the Oklahoma Historical Society has 32 museums and historical sites around this state. 32. Guess how many are in Tulsa, Oklahoma? 0. This is our time to have the one relevant site in the music industry, and it should be right here, straight across the street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you, Leon. Thank you very much for so many years and the commitment you made to this city, but to music, and to giving us something to really aspire to and think about and just feel pretty damn good about. Your music. Now I'd like to hear from Leon. I'd love to hear from Leon Russell, but unfortunately now we got to hear from Mike Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me tell you, Dewey, I'd much rather hear from Leon as well. Thank you, little brother. Congratulations to you, to Bob Blackburn and George Kaiser and others for really making today possible. What an exciting announcement for us to celebrate today. It's a pretty special day, as Bob said in the very beginning. And I introduced Bob to Rotary a couple of weeks ago, and I told someone, I said, you know, you look at Bob, you may think he's kind of a smart guy, but that is the single smartest human being on the face of this earth. Bob is wonderful, and Bob, it has been a real blessing for us all here to work with you these past few years to really birth and incubate this project. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all you've done. Many of you know that I'm sort of a country boy from Louisiana who came here a few years ago, but growing up in Louisiana, I think there's a lot of us from around the country thought of Tulsa as a cool place, thought of Tulsa as really housing some of the world's greatest musicians. But I think when we thought about Tulsa, Dewey, to your point, I think we thought of Leon Russell as probably the coolest of them all. So, Mr. Russell, it's a privilege to be here with you today, and it's a privilege really for all of us. As many of you know, really some of the world's greatest musicians recorded at Leon Russell's Church Street studio. So I think it's very fitting today that we stand just blocks from Leon Russell Boulevard, where history was made. And we're here today to accept these very generous gifts for the OKPOP Museum. So really, Mr. Russell, on behalf of the state of Oklahoma, on behalf of all of us here in the Tulsa region, let us say thank you so very much for your very generous gift and for being here with us today. Thank you. Levitt tells me to sit in. He's given me a 10-page script he wants me to say. But let me say that really all of us today, I think it's obvious, and it's really been obvious for several years. I think these phenomenal legislative leaders will tell you that everybody here cares a whole bunch about this project and really cares about the potential impact that it will have on our entire state, as you've heard today. Really, the Tulsa Regional Chamber, Gary Aiken, the Washoe Chamber, all the chambers in this region for a number of years have identified this as a top priority for our state and a top priority for our region. And so we're really excited. We're excited about being able to continue the fight. This has been something that, thanks to the Bank of Oklahoma's very generous gift, thanks to the Kaiser's Foundation, ongoing, continual, generous gifts, we're where we are today. These legislators have really stuck their neck out. They stuck their neck and everything else out last year, and I want to thank Senator Bingman and Senator Burridge for the extraordinary leadership that they provided in the legislature last year. At the chamber, we have to talk a little bit about economics. So been asked to share a couple of things. What does this thing mean economically to our state and to our region? First of all, I'll share a couple numbers. Construction of this project, the Bob Blackburn Memorial Project, will create some 700 jobs over the 4 years that it will take to design, to build, and to furnish the museum. Once the OKPOP is operational, the museum and the very important parking garage adjoining it will generate an additional $3.7 million a year just in sales tax revenue alone, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Keith, $3.7 million annually, with an annual attendance of some 250,000 every year. The museum's economic impact will exceed some $61.2 million each year. I think the return on investment to our state it can't simply be measured in tax dollars. It's amazing to have a world-class destination of this sort in our state and our community. And as Bob Blackburn said, the location of this museum couldn't be more perfect. When what was once an area that was aging, that had abandoned warehouses, with really only 2 reasons to come back here. And those 2 reasons were to visit the Brady Theater or Kane's Ballroom, now is amazing. The Kaiser Foundation and others have done a phenomenal job to see this diverse mix of progressive art. The Hardesty Arts Center, the Zero Center for Arts and Education, shopping, restaurants, baseball stadiums. We've got it all back here. A new TV station is growing every day. But really, the Brady Arts District is truly the center of our community's art scene. And we think that the OKPOP will be a very critical part and a very essential addition to that. So on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. And again, Senator Beaman, Senator Burridge, thank you. And I want to echo what they both said. That is, encourage each and every one of you to do what those of us at the chambers have been doing for the last several years. And that is speak to every single legislator that you see, whether you know them or you don't know them, whether they're from Northeast Oklahoma or Southwest Oklahoma. Go see them in the coming weeks. Tell them about the importance of this project to our state. Tell them about the importance of this project to Leon Russell, to Garth Brooks, to many, many others. Tell them we've got to get this thing done this year. So thank you all so very much. Thank you for being here to show your support. It's my privilege to turn the podium back over to my little twin brother.
Mike Hale. In closing, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, our speakers, for reminding us of the power of public-private partnerships, whether it's the OU Health Science Center or the Gilcrease Museum, our great destinations, our great projects together as Oklahomans, our public-private partnerships. I want to thank all of our partners here, so many from different partners in the community make this possible, and most of all, a man who I heard Elton John refer to the other day appropriately as the Master. Thank you, Mr. Leon Russell, the Master, for being here. We're all honored. Thank you.
We have some of the collections out on display over here, and we're stretching here a little bit. We have a gift we want to present to Leon, so it's coming into the building right now. Are there any questions for Steve Todoroff out here, the man who collected this, or anyone on the stage while we're waiting for this? This is a rendering of a museum idea that would be located across the street here from this wonderful facility. And we have placed one of Leon's photographs. So Leon, we would like to present this to you. Fortunately, you came in a bus, so you'll have room to take it home with you. But this is something similar to what we hope to have here in Tulsa soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions about the collection itself? Yes.
I have a question for you. When did you first come up with this concept? Because I know this has been going on for years. Like, I remember first seeing OKPOP.
We met you about the same time. I was here in April of 2007. I had a phone call from a man I'd never met, Ken Levitt. Ken wanted me to come over and talk about a Woody Guthrie collection that he was chasing. And we offered our help. We ate right there in the Brady Arts District, Lola's, and kind of hit it off that day. And once we started, we were working on an exhibit that at that time on the history of rock and roll. we had already interviewed Leon and over 200 pioneers in rock and roll history. Told Ken about that. And so as we started working on the project, it grew. And then Mr. Kaiser got more involved. BOK stepped up with their pledge of a piece of property that's probably worth around $3 million, contingent upon the state doing something. Then we started talking to our elected officials. And then Mayor Bartlett, a year and a half ago, helped lead the effort to get a $3 million pledge from the city of Tulsa. We now have included in this plan not only the money to build it, we have the money either in our base appropriation at the Historical Society or money pledged locally to build this without another penny of state money being taken out of general revenue. We have a business plan that will work. So we don't have to say, what's more important, repairing the state capitol or OKPOP? We say, we don't have to make that decision. We do not need another penny out of general revenue. We can make this thing work and build this and get it open by 2017. And then the business plan for operation is that this will be self-supporting. The last piece of that puzzle was made possible by the mayors and the city of Tulsa's offer to help with the pledge. We want to build a parking garage on the other side of the museum that will have 650 places that will provide a stream of revenue to add to admissions, to museum store sales, to special events. If we do not have 300 to 400 special events in that museum a year, I'll be surprised. That's what we're getting at the History Center in Oklahoma City. We've done this. We've done 3 museums with this same model. It's worked. We did the Route 66 Museum, Oklahoma History Center, and the new museum in Enid. We raised $9 million for that museum there, and it's up and running now. We can do that same thing here in Tulsa. So we've been working, in this April, it'll be 6 years. Any other questions about the museum itself? We have a, Steve, yes? Yes.
From Leon that he wants to give to the museum.
Okay, this is an image. Leon, you want to describe?
Well, that's me and Mr. Autry at one of his radio stations out in the San Fernando Valley that he had never been at. So we went in there. Somebody took that picture.
Gene Autry, another Oklahoman. Gene Autry was discovered. He was actually working in a telegraph office when met a new movie star named Will Rogers. Will heard him sing and says, there's a place in the movies for singing cowboys. And that was the beginning of Gene's career, of course. Learned how to invest well, too, in California.
Actually, I was working as a telegraph operator for the railroad in Enid. That's where he worked. He told me that.
All right. Very well, thank you for that image. We don't have that one. And? An artist from Nashville?
Oh.
All right. The likeness is there. When we went out to interview Leon in Texas, he was on tour, and we finally found an opportunity to interview him. And what was that community? Larry, what was the community where you did the interview? Carl's Corner, where Willie Nelson does his radio show. And we caught up with Leon there, and we were talking, and he said, well, let me put my Leon stuff on. So we put on the hat and the sunglasses, so we did the interview. But thank you, Leon, for this gift. That's wonderful. Flamboyant, like the man depicted in the image. Anything else? Excuse me.
Oh, it would be kind of fun to know some of those pictures that popped up there. Leon, were you in high school or college in that photo that you were conducting?
Actually, I got a scholarship to go to college because of my handicap. The state of Oklahoma gives scholarships for that. So I went and took a few tests, and I got the scholarship. And then the same week, I had a chance to go on the road with Jerry Lee Lewis, so I went on the road with him. Not very academic.
And would you share with us how you got the name Leon Russell, the reason for that?
Oh, let me see. Leon Russell.
Did it have something to do with a fake ID?
Well, there's a bunch of stuff, really. And I was, like I said, I started playing in bars in Oklahoma when I was 14. I got out to California when I was 17. They didn't have any sense of humor about that at all. And I said, I'm a musician. They said, so what? So I was having a hard time working. I had to borrow IDs. One guy that I borrowed an ID from was a Cajun man named Leonel DeBroke. I liked that, so I adopted the Leon part of that. And a lot of people were still calling me Russell, so I just made it Leon Russell. And it also sounded like a name that nobody would change their name to.
Good story. Larry, any stories you'd like for Leon to tell from the interview? No?
I think that session image you were talking about was when he was in California with Phil Spector.
The Phil Spector session?
Phil Spector, I don't know which one you had in mind, if it was the one where I got drunk and climbed up top of the piano and said some rather negative stuff to him. Actually, there's a movie that's out called The Wrecking Crew, and Cher does a pretty good story about that particular thing. But Phil Spector could never be accused of overestimating his audience. When I first came in to play for him, he came up to me and he said, "Play dumb. Play dumb." He felt like the audience was not very smart, but they didn't kill anybody. So
Well, he was also carrying a gun that day, I probably.
you know what?
Was he carrying a gun that day?
I don't know about the first day. I mean, I saw him take it out and play with it and shoot a hole in the roof of A&M. I thought I was kind of careful about what I said around him, except that one particular day I was with this trumpet player and enticed me to drink some peach brandy, so I lost my restraint somewhat.
Anything else? If the press would like to come up, do an interview with Leon. Steve, are you available for an interview here? Steve, who gathered the collections, are available. Me and anyone else. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you.